Thomas Mitchell hadn't set foot in his childhood home for 15 years. Now, as he stood on the cracked pathway leading to the old Victorian house, memories washed over him like the autumn rain that had soaked through his jacket. The house looked smaller than he remembered, its white paint peeling and the garden overgrown. His father's pride and joy had fallen into disrepair after his mother moved to a retirement community 5 years ago. "Are you coming in, or are you just going to stand there all day?" The voice belonged to his older sister, Kate, who stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. Her hair was cut shorter than he remembered, and there were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there the last time they'd seen each other. Thomas sighed and walked toward the house, his footsteps heavy. "Nice to see you too, Kate." She didn't respond, just turned and disappeared inside. Thomas followed, the familiar smell of old books and wood polish hitting him as he stepped into the entryway. Some things never changed. The living room was filled with familiar faces, his younger brother Alex sitting on the couch, thumbing through his phone, his Aunt Patricia talking quietly with his mother, and his cousin Emma, who gave him a small wave from the corner. The only person missing was the reason they were all gathered here: his father, Richard Mitchell, who had passed away 3 days ago after a sudden heart attack. "You're late," his mother said, her voice lacking the warmth it once held when speaking to him. Margaret Mitchell had aged considerably since Thomas had last seen her, her once auburn hair now completely gray. "The flight was delayed," Thomas said, though they both knew that wasn't the whole truth. He could have come earlier, should have visited years ago, but the argument that had driven him away still burned in his memory. Alex stood up, breaking the tension. "Good to see you, Tom." He embraced his brother briefly, then stepped back. "Dad's lawyer will be here soon. We're supposed to go through some of the paperwork before the reading of the will tomorrow." Thomas nodded, setting his bag down by the stairs. "I'll be staying at a hotel. I just need to—" "Don't be ridiculous," his mother interrupted. "You'll stay here. Your room is still there." Before Thomas could protest, the doorbell rang. Alex went to answer it, returning moments later with a balding man in a charcoal suit. "This is Mr. Donovan, Dad's attorney," Alex explained. Mr. Donovan nodded at the assembled family. "I'm very sorry for your loss. Richard was a good man." He placed his briefcase on the coffee table and removed several folders. "I know the official reading isn't until tomorrow, but Richard asked me to give you all something tonight." He distributed sealed envelopes to everyone in the room. Thomas stared at his name written in his father's distinctive handwriting, a lump forming in his throat. "He wrote these about a month ago," Mr. Donovan continued. "Said he had a feeling his time was coming. He wanted each of you to have these letters before the will is read." Kate immediately tore hers open, her eyes scanning the contents quickly. Her face paled. "This can't be right," she whispered. Alex looked up from his own letter, confusion etched on his face. "Did you all get the same thing?" Thomas hesitated, then opened his envelope. Inside was a single page with only a few sentences. "Thomas, I know we parted on bad terms, but I've always held out hope that you would return home one day. I've left you controlling interest in the company. It should have been yours all along. Make it right. Love, Dad." The silence in the room was deafening. Thomas looked up to find Kate staring at him, her expression a mixture of disbelief and anger. "This is a joke, right?" Kate's voice was tight. "You haven't been part of this family for 15 years, and now Dad's just handing you the company." Thomas reread the letter, confusion washing over him. The family business, Mitchell Construction, had been his father's life's work. Thomas had been groomed to take over from a young age, before the fight that had sent him running to Chicago to start his own architectural firm. "I don't understand," Thomas said. "Kate, you've been running the company with Dad for years." "Exactly," Kate's voice rose. "I've put my entire life into that company while you were off playing architect in Chicago. And now he just gives it to you." Their mother stood up, her face ashen. "Let's all calm down. The official will hasn't been read yet." But Kate wasn't listening. "Did you know about this?" she demanded, turning to their mother. Margaret shook her head. "Your father and I didn't discuss the will." Alex had been quiet, but now he spoke up. "My letter says Dad left me the house and his personal investments." He looked around the room. "What does yours say, Mom?" "That's private," Margaret said quietly, folding her letter and placing it back in the envelope. "I think we should all take some time to process this before we discuss it further." Mr. Donovan cleared his throat. "The official reading is tomorrow at 10. All will be explained then." He gathered his briefcase. "I'll see myself out." After the lawyer left, The tension in the room was unbearable. Kate was still glaring at Thomas, who felt completely blindsided. "I need some air," Thomas muttered, heading for the back door. The porch swing where he and his father used to sit still hung from the old oak tree. He sank onto it, his father's letter clutched in his hand. The back door opened, and Thomas looked up, expecting Kate ready for a confrontation. Instead, it was his cousin Emma. She sat beside him on the swing. "Dramatic homecoming, huh?" she said. Thomas let out a humorless laugh. "You could say that. Kate's been working herself to death at that company," Emma said. "I think she expected to inherit it." "I'm not here to take anything from her," Thomas said. "I don't even know if I want the company." Emma was quiet for a moment. "Maybe that's exactly why Uncle Richard left it to you." Thomas looked at her, questioning. "Kate wants it too much," Emma explained. "Uncle Richard always said business decisions shouldn't be emotional." The porch light flicked on, illuminating the yard. Through the window, Thomas could see his family moving around inside, his past and an uncertain future converging in a house full of memories and resentment. Morning arrived with a heavy fog hanging over the Mitchell house, matching the mood inside. Thomas had barely slept in his old bedroom, surrounded by high school trophies and outdated posters his parents had never removed. He'd spent hours staring at the ceiling, replaying the argument from 15 years ago when his father had accused him of betraying the family by wanting to pursue architecture instead of joining the construction business. The kitchen was quiet when Thomas came downstairs, but he found Alex sitting at the old oak table, nursing a cup of coffee. "There's a fresh pot," Alex said, gesturing to the counter. Thomas poured himself a cup and sat across from his brother. "Where is everyone?" "Mom's getting ready." Kate left early to go to the office before the will reading. Alex fiddled with his cup. Emma went with Aunt Patricia to pick up some breakfast. The silence between them grew uncomfortable until Alex finally spoke. "What happened between you and Dad, Tom? I mean, the real story." "I was only 16 when you left." Thomas sighed. "It wasn't just about me not wanting to join the company. There was more to it." He hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I discovered some discrepancies in the company books. When I confronted Dad, he got defensive, said I didn't understand how business worked." Alex's eyes widened. "You thought Dad was doing something illegal?" "Not exactly, but I thought he was cutting corners, maybe not being entirely honest with his partners." Thomas ran a hand through his hair. "Looking back, I was young and idealistic, but it felt like a betrayal of everything he'd taught us about integrity." "Did you ever find out if you were right?" Thomas shook his head. "We had the big blow-up before I could dig deeper. Then I left, and that was that." The front door opened, and Emma and Aunt Patricia arrived with bags of pastries and more coffee. Soon after, their mother came downstairs, looking tired but composed. "We should leave for the lawyer's office," Margaret said after a quick breakfast. "Kate will meet us there." The drive to downtown Oak Ridge was tense. Thomas sat in the back of his mother's car, watching the familiar streets pass by. The small Massachusetts town hadn't changed much in 15 years. Mitchell construction signs were visible on several developments, evidence of the company's continued success under his father and sister's leadership. Mr. Donovan's office was in a renovated colonial building on Main Street. Kate was already waiting in the conference room, pointedly avoiding Thomas's gaze as the rest of the family filed in. Once they were all seated, Mr. Donovan entered with a thick folder. "Thank you all for coming. Before I begin, I want to explain that Richard made some changes to his will 6 months ago. The letters you received last night were written after these changes." He opened the folder and put on his reading glasses. "I'll summarize the main points. As indicated in his letter, Thomas Mitchell is bequeathed 51% ownership of Mitchell Construction, making him the majority shareholder." Kate's knuckles turned white as she gripped the armrests of her chair. Mr. Donovan continued. "Catherine Mitchell retains her current 30% ownership and her position as Chief Operations Officer, with a stipulation that her share increases to 40% if certain conditions are met over the next 5 years. This was news to Thomas. He glanced at Kate, who looked equally surprised. Alexander Mitchell inherits the family home and Richard's personal investment portfolio, valued at approximately $1.2 million. Alex nodded, having already known this from his letter. To Margaret Mitchell, Richard leaves his remaining personal assets and a life insurance policy. Mr. Donovan looked up. There are additional specific bequests to other family members which are detailed in the document. He paused, then continued. Now, there's an important condition regarding Thomas's inheritance of the controlling interest in the company. Everyone in the room tensed. Thomas must return to Oak Ridge and actively work in the company for a minimum of 1 year before the shares are fully transferred to him. During this time, Margaret Mitchell will hold these shares in trust. What? Kate finally broke her silence. So he can just waltz in after 15 years, put in a year of work, and then own the company? This is insane. Mr. Donovan raised a hand. There's more. If Thomas declines or fails to meet this condition, his shares will be divided equally between Catherine and Alexander. Kate leaned back, a calculating look crossing her face. Additionally, Mr. Donovan continued, there's a sealed letter that Richard instructed me to give to Thomas, Catherine, and Margaret together after the reading of the will. He pulled out an envelope and handed it to Margaret. He specified that the three of you should read this privately. After answering a few questions about tax implications and timelines, Mr. Donovan concluded the meeting. As the family prepared to leave, he called Thomas aside. Your father came to see me shortly after he made these changes, Mr. Donovan said quietly. He mentioned that there were matters at the company that concerned him, things he couldn't discuss with Catherine. I think that may be why he structured the will this way. Thomas felt a chill run down his spine. His suspicions from 15 years ago resurfaced. Back at the house, tension filled every room. Kate had driven off immediately after the meeting, ignoring their mother's request to come back to the house to read the private letter. She'll cool down eventually, Alex said, though he didn't sound convinced. An hour later, Kate's car pulled into the driveway. She stormed into the house, making straight for the liquor cabinet and pouring herself a generous whiskey. Let's get this over with, she said, taking the sealed letter from Margaret. The three of them went into Richard's study, a room that looked exactly as Thomas remembered it. Dark wood, leather chairs, and bookshelves filled with construction manuals and family photos. Margaret closed the door, leaving Alex, Emma, and Aunt Patricia in the living room. Kate tore open the envelope and began reading aloud. If you're reading this, then you've learned about my decision regarding the company. I know this comes as a shock to all of you, especially Kate and Thomas. I owe you an explanation. Kate, you've been my rock at Mitchell Construction for years, and your dedication has helped build it into what it is today. But I've watched you make the same mistakes I once made, putting business above everything else, including your own happiness. Thomas, when you confronted me years ago about the company's practices, you were right. I was cutting corners, making deals that weren't entirely above board. Your leaving forced me to reevaluate everything. Over the years, I've worked to clean up the company, to make it something I could be proud of again. Together, you two have the skills to make Mitchell Construction better than I ever could. Kate knows the business inside and out, and Thomas has the vision and integrity that the company needs. There's one more thing you need to know. The Jackson Heights project that we're currently bidding on, there's a problem. The land surveys showed contamination that would make residential development dangerous. I've been trying to figure out how to handle it without bankrupting the company, but I haven't found a solution yet. This is your first test. Fix what I couldn't. I love you both. Margaret, help them find their way back to being family again. Kate's voice had grown increasingly unsteady as she read. When she finished, she looked up, eyes glistening with unshed tears. He knew about the contamination? We've already started preliminary work on that site. Thomas felt sick. How bad is it? Bad enough that if it gets out, we could lose everything, Kate said. The company, our reputation, everything. Margaret placed a hand on Kate's shoulder. Your father must have believed you could find a way to make it right. Kate laughed bitterly. By bringing back the prodigal son? What does Thomas know about running a construction company now? He designs fancy buildings in Chicago. Actually, Thomas said quietly, my firm specializes in sustainable development and environmental remediation projects. If there's contamination, maybe I can help. Kate stared at him, conflict evident on her face. Finally, she downed her whiskey and stood up. Fine. You want back in? Be at the office tomorrow morning at 7. We'll see what the great Thomas Mitchell can do. As she left the study, Thomas caught his mother's eye. Margaret looked tired but resolved. You'll stay then? She asked. Thomas nodded slowly. I'll stay. Mitchell Construction occupied a renovated textile mill on the edge of Oak Ridge. The original brick walls now housing modern offices with glass partitions and steel beams that preserve the building's industrial character while creating a contemporary workspace. Thomas arrived at 6:45 a.m., using the key his mother had given him from his father's desk. The office was quiet, with only a few early employees who glanced curiously at him as he made his way through the open floor plan. Though he'd never worked here, Thomas knew the building well. He'd helped his father design the renovation during his second year of architecture school, before everything fell apart. He found his father's office, now Kate's, at the end of the hall. The door was open, and Kate was hunched over a stack of papers, a half-empty coffee mug at her elbow. "You're early," she said without looking up. Some habits die hard. Their father had always insisted that being early showed respect for other people's time. At least that lesson had stuck with both of them. Kate finally looked at him, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept much. "You're going to need these." She pushed a stack of folders toward him. Environmental reports, land surveys, and project plans for Jackson Heights. Conference room C is empty. You can work there. Thomas took the folders. "Don't you think we should discuss this together? I've been up all night reviewing these files. I need to handle the regular operations this morning. The bid presentation for Jackson Heights is scheduled for Friday, which gives us 3 days to figure out if we can fix this or if we need to pull out." Thomas nodded. "Fair enough. I'll review these and we can talk after." The morning passed in a blur of technical specifications and environmental reports. The Jackson Heights development was the largest project Mitchell Construction had ever undertaken, a mixed-use community with residential homes, retail space, and a small park. The land had previously been used for a textile dye factory that had closed in the 1970s. Initial testing had shown acceptable levels of contamination, but the more recent surveys his father had commissioned privately told a different story. By noon, Thomas had a clearer picture of the problem, and it was worse than he'd feared. The groundwater showed concerning levels of chemicals that would make the land unsafe for residential use without significant remediation. The cost would be enormous, potentially wiping out any profit margin on the project. He was making notes when the conference room door opened. A man about Thomas's age entered, carrying a tablet and looking surprised to see someone there. "Sorry, I didn't realize anyone was using this room," he said. "No problem," Thomas replied. "I'm Thomas Mitchell." Recognition dawned on the man's face. The prodigal son returns. He smiled and extended his hand. "Jason Sullivan. I'm the project manager for Jackson Heights. I've heard a lot about you over the years." Thomas shook his hand. "All terrible, I'm sure." Jason laughed. "Mixed reviews. Your father spoke highly of your talent, though he wasn't shy about his disappointment. And Kate, let's just say she's complicated." Jason glanced at the files spread across the table. "I see you're getting up to speed on my project. Mind if I ask what?" Thomas hesitated, unsure how much Jason knew. "Just trying to understand the business better. Dad's will had some conditions." Jason nodded slowly. "I heard. Office gossip spreads fast." He paused. "Look, I know about the contamination issue. Your father discussed it with me about 3 months ago." Thomas straightened. "What did he say?" "That we might need to reconsider the residential component. He was looking into alternative uses for that section of the property." Jason leaned against the table. "The problem is, we've already pre-sold 30% of the homes. If we back out now, the company could face lawsuits," Thomas finished. "Not just lawsuits. In this town, reputation is everything. Mitchell Construction has been the gold standard. One scandal like this could ruin decades of goodwill." Thomas rubbed his temples. Did my father have any specific ideas for alternatives? He was considering a solar farm for the most contaminated area. It would require buying back the pre-sold lots, but it might actually improve the overall project's marketability as an eco-friendly development. Jason smiled sadly. Richard was always thinking ahead. The door opened again, and Kate stood there, her expression unreadable. "Jason, can I speak with my brother alone?" After Jason left, Kate closed the door. "I see you've met our rising star. He seems competent," Thomas said, "and he might have part of the solution to our problem." Kate sat down, looking suddenly exhausted. "There is no our problem, Thomas. You've been here less than a day." "Kate, no, let me finish." She took a deep breath. "For 15 years, I've been here. Every day, building this company while you were off pursuing your dreams. Do you have any idea what it's like to be the one who stayed? The one who gave up everything for the family business?" Thomas studied his sister. Her hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, her clothing crisp and professional. but there was something brittle about her, like glass ready to shatter. "I never asked you to stay," he said quietly. "No, you didn't. You just left." Kate's voice rose. "And now Dad's handed you control of everything I've worked for." "I haven't decided if I'm staying yet," Thomas countered. "But regardless, we have a problem we need to solve right now. People could get sick if we build homes on that land." Kate's anger seemed to deflate slightly. "I know, but if we pull out of this project, the company might not survive. We've invested too much. What if we don't pull out? What if we redesign the project?" Thomas pulled out a blank sheet of paper and began sketching. Jason mentioned Dad was considering a solar farm for the contaminated section. What if we go further, turn this into a model of sustainable development? Despite herself, Kate leaned forward to look at his sketch. Thomas continued, "We could concentrate the residential units on the clean sections, create a larger green buffer with the solar farm, and add a community center focused on environmental education." "That sounds expensive," Kate said, but Thomas could tell she was interested. "Initial costs would be higher, but we could apply for federal green development grants. Plus, we could market this as a unique eco-community, charge a premium for the homes." Kate considered this. "The pre-sold lots are a problem. We offer the buyers first choice of the new locations, plus a discount, or a full refund with interest if they prefer to back out." For the first time, Kate looked at him with something other than resentment. "You've been thinking about this all morning?" Thomas shrugged. "It's what I do in Chicago. My firm specializes in problematic sites, turning environmental challenges into opportunities." Kate was quiet for a moment. "This might actually work." She paused, then added reluctantly, "I guess that architecture degree wasn't a complete waste." It wasn't quite an olive branch, but it was something. Thomas smiled slightly. "High praise coming from you." The moment was interrupted by Alex bursting into the room, looking agitated. "There you both are. You need to come to the house right now." "What's wrong?" Kate asked, standing up. "It's Mom. She collapsed. The ambulance just took her to Oak Ridge General." The drive to the hospital was tense, with Kate breaking speed limits while Thomas called ahead to get information. By the time they arrived, their mother had been stabilized, but the doctor's diagnosis was troubling: stress-induced heart arrhythmia. "She needs to rest and avoid stress," Dr. Patel told them in the hallway outside Margaret's room. "Has she been under unusual pressure lately?" Thomas and Kate exchanged guilty looks. Alex, who had arrived separately with Emma, spoke up. "Our father just died, and there's been some family tension." Dr. Patel nodded sympathetically. "That would explain it. She'll need to stay overnight for observation, but she should be able to go home tomorrow if there are no further incidents." They entered the room to find Margaret looking pale but alert. "Don't you all look serious," she said, attempting a smile. "I'm fine. Just a little hiccup." "Mom, you scared us," Kate said, taking her hand. Margaret squeezed Kate's fingers. "It's nothing. Just my body telling me to slow down." "We've been making things harder for you," Thomas said. "With our fighting." Margaret looked between her two eldest children. "Your father knew bringing you back together would be difficult, but he believed in both of you." Her voice grew stronger. "Now, tell me what you figured out about Jackson Heights." Kate started to protest that business could wait, but Margaret waved her off. "I've been part of Mitchell Construction since before you were born, Catherine. Tell me." So they did, outlining the contamination problem and Thomas's proposed solution. As they talked, the tension between them seemed to ease slightly, united by the common goal of protecting both their mother's health and their father's legacy. When they finished, Margaret nodded. Richard would have approved. He always believed in finding the path that was both right and smart. A nurse came in to announce that visiting hours were ending. As they prepared to leave, Margaret caught Thomas's arm. "Stay a moment." When the others had gone, she looked at him seriously. "Your father was a proud man. Too proud to admit when he was wrong or to reach out when he should have. You get that from him." Thomas started to protest, but she continued. "Kate gets her stubbornness from me. Between the two of you, it's a wonder anything gets done." She smiled slightly. "But you also both inherited our best qualities. Together, you could build something remarkable." "If we don't kill each other first," Thomas said, only half joking. "You'll figure it out. You both love the same things: good design, solid work, making things that last." Margaret's eyes grew distant. "That's what your father wanted to leave behind. Not just a company, but a family that works together, that stays together." As Thomas left the hospital, He found Kate waiting by her car, arms crossed against the evening chill. "She gave you the pep talk too?" Kate asked. Thomas nodded. "She's pretty good at those." Kate unlocked her car, but paused before getting in. "I have the revised environmental reports at my place. If we're going to redesign this project, we should probably get started tonight." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. "Lead the way," Thomas said. "I'll follow you." Kate's condo overlooked the Oak Ridge River, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the water and the twinkling lights of downtown. It was minimalist and spotless, looking more like a high-end hotel suite than a lived-in home. Thomas noticed there were no personal photos, no clutter, nothing that revealed much about his sister's life outside of work. "Nice place," he commented as Kate spread the project files across her dining table. "I'm rarely here except to sleep," she replied, not looking up. "Coffee, please." While Kate prepared the coffee, Thomas studied the Jackson Heights site plans. The more he examined them, the more he could see the potential. With the right approach, they could transform this environmental liability into a showcase project. Kate returned with 2 mugs. "So this solar farm idea, you really think it could work? I've done similar projects in Chicago and Detroit. The trick is marketing. It has a feature, not a compromise." Thomas pulled out his tablet and opened a portfolio of his firm's work. "Look at this development we did on an old industrial site." Kate scrolled through the images, her expression gradually shifting from skepticism to interest. "This is actually impressive. The integration of the remediation features into the overall design makes it feel intentional rather than reactionary," Thomas finished. "Exactly." For the next several hours, they worked side by side, sketching new layouts, running preliminary cost analyses, and identifying potential grant opportunities. Their working styles were different, Kate methodical and detail-oriented, Thomas more intuitive and big-picture, but somehow complementary. Around midnight, Kate stretched and pushed away from the table. "We need to talk to the sales team tomorrow, and the project managers." Thomas nodded, gathering his notes. "We should also consult with an environmental remediation specialist. I know someone who's excellent, Sarah Chun. She worked with my firm on several projects. Can she get here quickly? I can call her in the morning," Thomas said. "She owes me a favor." Kate looked at him thoughtfully. "You've built a good life in Chicago, haven't you?" It was the first personal question she'd asked since his return. "It's been satisfying professionally," Thomas admitted. "Personally, that's more complicated." "Divorced? Partner?" Kate asked, a hint of her old directness returning. "Neither currently. There was someone serious a few years back, but my work schedule." Thomas shrugged. "What about you?" Kate gave a short laugh. "When would I have time? Mitchell Construction has been my whole life." "That's exactly what Dad used to say," Thomas observed quietly. Kate's expression hardened slightly. "And look how that turned out." The moment of connection passed. Kate gathered her empty coffee mug and headed to the kitchen. "You can crash on the couch if you want. It's late." "Thanks, but I should get back to Mom's. Alex is staying there, but I don't want him to have to handle everything alone." Kate nodded, not quite meeting his eyes. "See you tomorrow at the office, then." 7:30, project room. The next morning, Thomas arrived at Mitchell Construction to find it buzzing with activity. Word had spread about potential changes to the Jackson Heights project, and the atmosphere was thick with speculation. Jason Sullivan intercepted Thomas before he could reach the project room. "Is it true?" Jason asked. "Are we completely redesigning Jackson Heights?" "We're exploring options," Thomas said carefully. "Nothing's decided yet." Jason looked relieved. "Good, because I've been running numbers all night, and I think your solar farm idea could work. I've got some contacts at the state environmental agency who might fast-track approvals if we position this as a remediation project." "That's great, Jason. Why don't you join us in the meeting?" When Thomas entered the project room, he found Kate already there with 3 other people he didn't recognize: a young woman with bright red hair, an older man with salt and pepper beard, and a sharply dressed man around Thomas's age. "Thomas, this is our core team," Kate said briskly. "Megan Ryan, Marketing Director, Howard Patel, Head of Construction, and David Winters, Legal Counsel." Thomas shook hands with each of them as Jason slipped into the room behind him. "We've all been briefed on the situation," Kate continued, "including the contamination issue. Everyone in this room has signed additional confidentiality agreements this morning." Thomas raised an eyebrow at his sister's efficiency, but said nothing. I've asked Thomas to share his redesign concept, Kate said, stepping aside. For the next 30 minutes, Thomas outlined his vision for transforming Jackson Heights into an eco-community. As he spoke, he could see the team's initial skepticism giving way to cautious enthusiasm. The marketing potential is incredible, Megan said when he finished. Eco-conscious living is huge with our target demographic. If we do this right, we could actually charge a premium for these homes. The construction challenges are significant, Howard cautioned, but not insurmountable. We need to bring in specialized contractors for the remediation work. What about the pre-sold units? David asked. We're legally obligated to deliver what we promised. That's where we need your help, Thomas said. We need to craft a communication strategy that's honest about the changes but positions them as upgrades rather than compromises. David nodded thoughtfully. I can work up some options. Jason spoke up. I've been talking to my contacts about fast-tracking permits for the solar component. If we present this as a voluntary remediation project, we might even qualify for state funding. The energy in the room was shifting, Thomas realized. The problem that had seemed insurmountable was gradually transforming into an opportunity. We need to move quickly, Kate said. I want a complete proposal ready for the board by Monday. David, work with Megan on the communication plan for existing buyers. Howard, start identifying specialized contractors. Jason, keep working your contacts for expedited approvals. As the team dispersed, Kate turned to Thomas. Your environmental specialist. Can she get here by tomorrow? Already arranged. She'll be here at noon. Kate looked surprised. Efficient. I try. Thomas hesitated. There's something else we need to discuss. The bid presentation on Friday. We need to postpone it. Kate frowned. That's not going to be easy. The city council has been waiting for this proposal for months. We can't present the original plan knowing what we know, and we won't have the new design ready that quickly. Kate paced the room, thinking, what if we don't postpone? What if we go in with a conceptual presentation of the new vision? Frame it as Mitchell Construction taking a bold step towards sustainable development. Thomas considered this. It's risky. We'd be committing to a design we haven't fully worked out. But if it works, we secure the contract and buy ourselves time to finalize the details. Kate stopped pacing. It's exactly the kind of calculated risk Dad would have taken. Maybe, Thomas said. But is it the right thing to do? Kate looked at him sharply. This isn't just about doing the right thing. It's about saving 40 jobs and a 60-year-old company. It can be both, Thomas insisted. We just need to find the balance. Before Kate could respond, her phone rang. She checked the display. It's the hospital. Thomas felt a jolt of worry. Mom, Kate answered, her expression growing serious as she listened. We'll be right there. She hung up and turned to Thomas. They were about to discharge her, but her heart rhythm became irregular again. They want to run more tests. All thoughts of business strategies vanished. Let's go. As they hurried to the parking lot, Thomas was struck by how quickly their priorities had shifted. Just moments ago, they'd been debating business ethics. Now, nothing mattered except their mother's health. I'll drive, Kate said, keys already in hand. As they pulled out of the parking lot, she added quietly, She's all we have left, you know. Thomas glanced at his sister's profile, noticing for the first time the vulnerability beneath her tough exterior. Not quite, he said. We still have each other, whether we like it or not. Kate's hands tightened on the steering wheel, but she didn't disagree. Progress, Thomas thought. Small but real. Margaret Mitchell looked small against the white hospital sheets, monitors beeping steadily beside her. The doctor had explained that while her condition wasn't immediately life-threatening, they wanted to monitor her for at least another day and run additional tests. You two should go back to work, Margaret said, waving a dismissive hand at Thomas and Kate. I'm perfectly fine. We're staying until we hear from the cardiologist, Kate said firmly, an echo of their mother's own stubbornness in her tone. Margaret sighed. At least one of you should go. That Jackson Heights project won't fix itself. Thomas and Kate exchanged glances. I'll stay, Thomas offered. Kate can head back to the office and keep things moving. Kate hesitated, then nodded. I'll update the team and check back this afternoon. She squeezed her mother's hand before leaving. Once Kate was gone, Margaret fixed Thomas with a penetrating gaze. You two seem to be working together better. We're trying, Thomas admitted. It's complicated. Family always is. Margaret adjusted herself against the pillows. There's something in your father's study that you should look at. bottom drawer of his desk, behind the false panel. Thomas raised his eyebrows. A false panel? That sounds ominous. Richard had his secrets. Margaret's expression was unreadable. Some of them he kept even from me. What will I find? Something that might help you understand why he left you the company. She closed her eyes briefly, looking tired. And why he was so hard on you when you left. Before Thomas could ask more questions, a nurse entered to check Margaret's vitals, and the moment passed. By the time the nurse left, his mother had drifted off to sleep. Thomas sat beside her bed for another hour until Alex arrived to take over the vigil. After making sure his brother had everything under control, Thomas headed to the family home, curiosity gnawing at him. The house was quiet when he arrived. He made his way to his father's study and sat in the worn leather chair behind the desk. The bottom drawer was locked, but Thomas found the key in the pencil cup on the desk. His father had always been predictable about certain things. Inside the drawer were the usual items: office supplies, old checkbooks, a half-empty pack of mints. Thomas ran his fingers along the back wall of the drawer until he felt a slight depression. Pressing it, he heard a click, and a panel at the back slid aside, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a thick manila envelope and a small leather journal. Thomas removed both, his heart quickening. The envelope contained what appeared to be legal documents, contracts, land deeds, and financial statements, many dating back over 20 years. The journal was filled with his father's distinctive handwriting, entries spanning more than a decade. Thomas began reading the journal, and as the minutes turned to hours, a knot formed in his stomach. The story that emerged was one he had never expected. 25 years ago, when Mitchell Construction was still a small local business, Richard had partnered with a man named Victor Harrington on several development projects. According to the journal entries, Harrington had used his political connections to help secure contracts, sometimes through questionable means. When Richard discovered that Harrington had been cutting corners on building materials and safety measures, he had confronted his partner. The confrontation had escalated, and Harrington had threatened to reveal that Richard had been aware of at least some of the irregularities. To protect himself and the company, Richard had bought out Harrington's share of the business, using almost all of his personal savings and taking on significant debt. Thomas read the entry dated just after his own departure from Oak Ridge with a growing sense of discomfort. Thomas found the discrepancies in the Westridge project today. He doesn't realize they're remnants of Victor's work, not mine. I couldn't tell him the truth, that I've spent the last decade trying to fix the problems Harrington left behind. My son looked at me with such disappointment, as if I were no better than Victor. How could I explain that every corner cut, every code bent, was Harrington's doing? That I've been paying for those mistakes ever since. So I got angry instead. I drove him away rather than admit my own failures. Perhaps it's better this way. He can build his own legacy, one not tainted by the past. Thomas set down the journal, his mind racing. All these years, he had believed his father was the one compromising standards, when in reality, Richard had been dealing with the consequences of his former partner's actions. He turned to the legal documents, which seemed to verify the journal's account. There were records of payments to various regulatory agencies, fines for building violations, settlements with homeowners who had experienced problems with their properties. Richard had been systematically addressing issues caused by Harrington's cost-cutting, often at great personal expense. But there was something else: recent correspondence between Richard and a law firm regarding Victor Harrington. It seemed Harrington had returned to Oak Ridge and was now involved with Meridian Development, Mitchell Construction's main competitor for the Jackson Heights project. A cold realization washed over Thomas. If Harrington was involved with Meridian, and if he knew about the contamination at Jackson Heights, Thomas quickly gathered the documents and headed for the door. He needed to find Kate immediately. When he arrived at Mitchell Construction, the office was in an uproar. Thomas found Kate in the conference room with David Winters, both looking grim. "You've heard," Kate said when she saw him. "About Harrington? Just now. I found Dad's records." Thomas placed the documents on the table. Kate looked puzzled. "What records?" "I'm talking about the fact that Meridian Development just announced they're withdrawing their bid for Jackson Heights. They cited environmental concerns in a press release an hour ago." Thomas felt the blood drain from his face. They know about the contamination. And now, so does everyone else. David nodded grimly. "The city council is demanding answers. The EPA has already called. This is exactly what we were trying to avoid." How did they find out? Thomas asked. That's the thing, Kate said, her voice tight with anger. Jason Sullivan resigned this morning. No notice, no explanation. And guess where he's been hired? Meridian Development. Jason. Thomas couldn't hide his surprise. I thought he was loyal to Dad. Apparently loyalty has a price tag, Kate said bitterly. And Meridian was willing to pay it. Thomas quickly explained what he had discovered about their father's history with Victor Harrington. Kate listened, her expression darkening. So this isn't just business, she said when he finished. It's personal. Harrington is coming after Dad's legacy, using our own project manager against us. It gets worse, Thomas said. If these documents are accurate, Harrington has a history of exploiting situations like this for profit. He could be positioning Meridian to swoop in after the dust settles, buy the land at a discount, and proceed with a remediated version of our own plan. Kate slammed her hand on the table. Not if I can help it. We're going to fight back. How? The contamination is real. We can't deny that. No, but we can control the narrative. Kate turned to David. We need to get ahead of this. Call a press conference for tomorrow morning. We're going to announce our new eco-community vision before Meridian can steal it. David looked uncertain. Without complete plans? Without cost analyses? That's risky, Kate. It's riskier to do nothing, Kate insisted. Thomas, can you put together enough visuals by tomorrow to make this convincing? Thomas hesitated. Maybe, but we should talk to Mom about this first. She might know more about Harrington. Kate's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. It's Alex. Mom's test came back. The doctor wants to talk to all of us. Business concerns were immediately set aside as they headed for the hospital. Alex met them in the waiting room, his face drawn with worry. What did the doctor say? Kate asked immediately. He wants to tell all of us together, Alex replied. He's with Mom now. They were ushered into Margaret's room, where Dr. Patel was reviewing charts. Margaret looked calm, though her complexion was paler than usual. I've explained the situation to your mother, Dr. Patel began. But she wanted you all here to discuss treatment options. Treatment for what? Thomas asked, dread settling in his stomach. We found a blockage in one of Mrs. Mitchell's coronary arteries, the doctor explained. It's significant enough that we're recommending bypass surgery. The siblings absorbed this news in stunned silence. It's not an emergency yet, Dr. Patel continued. But we don't want to wait too long. We'd like to schedule the surgery for early next week. Whatever she needs, Kate said firmly. Margaret spoke up. I've already agreed to the surgery, but I need you three to promise me something. She looked at each of her children in turn. Whatever is happening with the company, with Jackson Heights, with all of it, you need to work together to fix it. Your father believed in you. All of you. Don't let him down now. Thomas felt a wave of shame wash over him. They had been so caught up in business concerns that they had lost sight of what really mattered. We promise, Mom, he said, taking her hand. Kate and Alex nodded in agreement. After the doctor left, Margaret turned to Thomas. You found Richard's journal? Thomas nodded. And the documents about Harrington. Victor Harrington nearly destroyed your father once, Margaret said quietly. Don't let him do it again. Not to the company, and not to this family. We won't, Kate promised, her voice stronger than it had been all day. But right now, you're our priority. Margaret smiled weakly. I'll be fine. This family has survived worse. She squeezed Thomas's hand. Now go. You have work to do. As they left the hospital, the three siblings walked together in silence, each lost in thought. Finally, Alex spoke up. So what's the plan? Kate and Thomas exchanged glances. We fight, Kate said simply. For the company. For Dad's legacy. For our family, Thomas added. Alex nodded. Tell me what you need me to do. For the first time since returning to Oak Ridge, Thomas felt like they were truly united. The road ahead would be difficult, but they would face it together as a family. Morning light streamed through the windows of Mitchell Construction's largest conference room, where the entire staff had gathered for an emergency meeting. The news about Meridian's withdrawal from the Jackson Heights project and their public statement about environmental concerns had spread quickly through Oak Ridge's business community. Rumors were flying, and the company's employees needed answers. Thomas stood at the back of the room while Kate addressed the staff, her voice steady despite the pressure. By now, you've all heard about Meridian's announcement, she began. What you haven't heard is the full story. Yes, there are environmental challenges at the Jackson Heights site. My father discovered these issues several months ago and was working on solutions before his passing. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kate continued, rather than seeing this as a setback, we're viewing it as an opportunity. Mitchell Construction has always been at the forefront of building innovation in this region. Now, we're going to lead in sustainable development as well. She gestured to Thomas. My brother has extensive experience with environmental remediation projects. Together, we've been developing a new vision for Jackson Heights, one that addresses the contamination issues while creating something truly revolutionary for Oak Ridge. Thomas stepped forward, feeling dozens of eyes turned toward him. Many of these people had known him as a teenager, had watched him walk away from the family business. Now he was back, presenting himself as part of the solution. The new Jackson Heights will be Oak Ridge's first true eco-community, Thomas explained, bringing up the preliminary renderings he'd worked on through the night. Solar power, green spaces, and a mix of residential and commercial properties designed to minimize environmental impact while maximizing quality of life. As he outlined the vision, Thomas could feel the mood in the room shifting from anxiety to cautious optimism. When he finished, Kate took over again. We have a press conference scheduled for noon today to announce our new direction. In the meantime, we need all hands on deck. Department heads, please stay for assignments. Everyone else, thank you for your trust and your dedication to Mitchell Construction. As the room cleared, Howard Patel approached Thomas. It's a good plan, the construction chief said. Ambitious, but good. Your father would have approved. Thanks, Howard. That means a lot. Megan Ryan, the marketing director, was practically buzzing with excitement. The press is already calling. This could actually work in our favor if we play it right. People love a redemption story. The company that found a problem and created an innovative solution instead of covering it up. Speaking of covering up, Thomas said, has anyone heard from Jason Sullivan? The mood darkened. Nothing, Howard replied. Cleaned out his desk last night. Security footage shows him leaving with several files. Kate joined them, her expression grim. David's looking into legal options, but without knowing exactly what Jason took, we're limited in what we can do. We need to focus on what we can control, Thomas said. The press conference, the redesign, and keeping the city council on our side. About that, Kate said. Mayor Whitman called. He wants to meet privately before the press conference. Thomas raised an eyebrow. That could be good or bad. Only one way to find out, Kate replied. Let's go. Mayor Robert Whitman was a distinguished man in his 60s who had served Oak Ridge for 3 consecutive terms. His office in City Hall was modest but well-appointed, with photos of his family and local landmarks adorning the walls. He greeted the Mitchell siblings with cautious courtesy. Catherine, Thomas, thank you for coming on such short notice. He gestured for them to sit. I'll be direct. The city council is concerned about the revelations regarding Jackson Heights. When a major developer like Meridian pulls out citing environmental issues, it raises serious questions. We understand, Kate began, but the mayor held up a hand. Let me finish. I've known your family for 30 years. Your father was a man of integrity, despite some complicated business decisions over the years. Thomas glanced at Kate, wondering how much the mayor knew about Richard's past with Harrington. The city has invested considerable resources in preparing for the Jackson Heights development, Whitman continued. Tax incentives, infrastructure improvements, all based on projected revenue and job creation. If this project fails or changes significantly, the consequences for Oak Ridge could be severe. Mayor Whitman, Thomas said, we believe the redesigned project will actually deliver more value to the city in the long term. Sustainable development attracts a different kind of investor and resident, people willing to pay premium prices for eco-friendly living. The mayor studied Thomas. I heard you've made quite a name for yourself in Chicago with these kinds of projects. I have, and I'd be happy to arrange calls with city officials there who can verify the economic benefits. Whitman nodded slowly. That would be helpful, but there's another matter we need to discuss. He leaned forward. Victor Harrington has approached several council members with a proposal. Meridian is offering to take over the Jackson Heights site at a reduced price, promising to handle the remediation and proceed with a development similar to what Mitchell originally proposed. Kate stiffened. Harrington is trying to steal our project. He's presenting it as a rescue mission, Whitman corrected. saving the city from a potentially disastrous partnership with a company that allegedly knew about contamination issues but proceeded anyway. That's not what happened, Thomas protested. Our father discovered the contamination and was working on solutions. He died before he could implement them. That's your side of the story, Whitman said. Harrington's telling a different one. And frankly, without your father here to defend himself, it's becoming a case of he said, she said. Kate leaned forward. What do you need from us, Mayor? To ensure the council gives Mitchell Construction a fair chance. The mayor considered this. Transparency. Complete transparency. I want full access to your environmental studies, your remediation plans, your financial projections, everything. No surprises. You'll have it, Thomas promised. We have nothing to hide. Good. Whitman stood, signaling the meeting was over. One more thing. Harrington has considerable influence with certain council members. If you're going to counter that, you might want to remind people of your family's long history in Oak Ridge. The Mitchell name still means something in this town. As they left City Hall, Kate was unusually quiet. Thomas finally broke the silence. You okay? Just processing, she said. Harrington isn't just after the company. He's after Dad's reputation too. Thomas nodded. We won't let that happen. It's all connected, isn't it? Kate mused. The company, the family, the legacy. Dad never could separate them. Maybe he was right about that, Thomas said quietly. They arrived back at the office to find Sarah Chun, the environmental specialist Thomas had called, waiting for them. She was a petite woman with an air of efficient competence that Thomas had always admired. Thomas, good to see you. She shook his hand, then Kate's. I've been reviewing the environmental reports you sent over. We need to talk. In the conference room, Sarah didn't mince words. The contamination is significant, but not catastrophic. With proper remediation techniques, most of the site can be made safe for residential use within a reasonable time frame and budget. Relief washed over Kate's face. That's the best news we've had all day. Don't celebrate yet, Sarah cautioned. There's a complication. The most recent water table tests show that the contamination is starting to spread toward the river. If it reaches the waterway, the cleanup costs will skyrocket and the regulatory issues will multiply. How long do we have? Thomas asked. Based on these readings, I'd say 6 to 8 months before it becomes a serious problem. Thomas and Kate exchanged glances. We can work with that timeline, Kate said, if we start remediation immediately. There's one more thing, Sarah added. I noticed some inconsistencies in the testing dates. The initial tests showing acceptable levels were conducted by Meridian Environmental Services. Meridian, Thomas repeated. As in Meridian Development? Sarah nodded. They're sister companies, both owned by Victor Harrington. Kate finished, her voice hard. The contamination didn't just happen recently, Thomas realized. It's been there all along. Meridian's tests were deliberately misleading. Which means, Kate said slowly, Dad didn't discover the contamination by chance. Someone must have tipped him off. The pieces were falling into place. Richard's private investigation, his secretive behavior, his urgency about fixing the problem, it all made sense now. We need to find out who warned Dad, Thomas said. They might have evidence we can use against Harrington. Kate checked her watch. The press conference is in an hour. We need to decide how much of this to share publicly. All of it, Thomas said without hesitation. Full transparency, remember? We tell the truth about the contamination, about Dad's discovery, about our plans to fix it. And we make it clear that we believe the initial testing was compromised. Without directly accusing Harrington, Kate added. Not until we have proof. As they prepared for the press conference, Alex called with good news. Their mother's surgery had been scheduled, and her doctors were optimistic about her recovery. At least one thing was going right. The Mitchell Construction lobby had been transformed into a makeshift press area, with local reporters and business leaders gathered to hear the company's response to the growing controversy. Thomas stood to the side as Kate approached the podium, struck by how much she resembled their father in that moment. Poised, determined, unafraid. Thank you all for coming, Kate began. Mitchell Construction has been part of Oak Ridge for 60 years. My grandfather started this company with nothing but a pickup truck and a toolbox. My father built it into what it is today. And now, my brother and I are committed to leading it into the future, a future that embraces both growth and responsibility. She outlined the situation with clarity and candor, acknowledging the contamination issues while presenting their vision for transforming Jackson Heights into a model of sustainable development. She didn't mention Harrington or Meridian directly, but the implication was clear when she noted that initial testing conducted by an outside firm failed to identify contamination that our own more thorough studies later discovered. When Kate finished, she invited Thomas to present the redesign concept. As he stepped to the podium, Thomas felt a surge of unexpected emotion. 6 days ago, he had returned to Oak Ridge as an outsider, determined to fulfill his obligation and leave as quickly as possible. Now he was standing alongside his sister, defending their father's legacy and the family business. The presentation was met with cautious optimism from most of the assembled press. There were challenging questions, of course, but Thomas and Kate fielded them as a team, each stepping in when the other faltered. After the last question, as the crowd began to disperse, Thomas noticed a familiar figure at the back of the room. Victor Harrington, watching with cold calculation in his eyes. Their gazes locked briefly before Harrington turned and walked out. "That went well," Kate said, joining Thomas. "Better than I expected." Harrington was here, Thomas told her. Watching, Kate's expression hardened. "Good. Let him see that we're not backing down." As they gathered their materials, Mayor Whitman approached. "Impressive presentation," he said. "The council will still need to review all the details, but I think you've bought yourselves some time." "Thank you for your support, Mayor," Kate replied. "I haven't taken sides yet," Whitman cautioned. "But I will say this, your father would be proud of how you two handled yourselves today." After the mayor left, Thomas and Kate found themselves alone in the lobby. The early evening light cast long shadows through the windows, reminding Thomas of similar moments from his childhood, waiting for their father to finish work so they could all go home together. "We should get to the hospital," Kate said. "Alex texted that Mom's asking for us." Thomas nodded, but neither of them moved immediately. There was something unresolved hanging in the air between them. "I was wrong about you," Kate finally said. "When you came back, I thought you were just here to claim your inheritance and leave again." "That was the plan," Thomas admitted. "Until I read Dad's letter. Until I saw what was happening with the company. Until—" he hesitated, then finished, "until I remembered what it was like to be part of something bigger than myself." Kate studied him. "Are you staying then? After the year is up?" It was the question Thomas had been asking himself since he first set foot back in Oak Ridge. A week ago, the answer would have been a definite no. Now he wasn't so sure. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "But I do know I'm not walking away from this fight. Not until we've secured Dad's legacy and made things right." Kate nodded, seemingly satisfied with that answer for now. "We should go. Mom's waiting." As they walked out together, Thomas gazed up at the Mitchell construction sign illuminated against the darkening sky. His father had built this company as a monument to his ambition, but also as a home for his family. Perhaps, Thomas thought, it was time to honor both of those intentions, to build something lasting while remembering what truly mattered. The challenges ahead were substantial. Harrington's machinations, the contamination issues, their mother's health, the fractured family bonds still healing. But for the first time in 15 years, Thomas didn't feel alone in facing them. He had found his way back to where he belonged, even if he hadn't fully realized it yet. Kate unlocked her car and glanced at him over the roof. "Race you to the hospital? I seem to remember you always losing." Thomas laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised him with its warmth. "Some things never change," he said, reaching for his own keys. "But some things do."